Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this. Welcome back to the Soul Tribe Podcast, everybody. I am doing a solo episode today. So this is me, Lorena, just in case you don't recognize the voice. Today, I'm going to be talking about preparing questions for an Akashic Record reading and why it's so important. And this came up the other day, actually talking to Lou, and how, now we have our Akashic Record level 1 and level 2 for sale. And a lot of you are moving on to level 2, and which means reading other people's Akashic Records. Actually, let me rewind. Akashic Records level 1. So the level 1 course would be for you to learn to read your own records, which is the first step in the process. And then you have Akashic Records level 2. So that would be learning to read other people's Akashic Records. Not everybody moves on to level 2, of course. This all depends. But the idea here is that if you are doing level 1 or level 2, so that means reading for yourself or other people, you need to have questions. The questions are a really big part and it's the most important part of a reading, regardless if it's for yourself or for others. And we always have to prepare questions beforehand. Preparing the questions beforehand is something that I think a lot of us, and I didn't realize this when I started on this journey with the Akashic Records, like getting my records read before I learned them, to open my own and open others, didn't understand really how important it was to really write down my questions and be really intentional about it. So I don't know if there's anybody new here, or maybe you're like, oh, what are the Akashic Records? Well, the idea here is that your soul has a book. It has its own book that has all of the information from your soul, from past lives, from this life, from anything you felt, you've desired, from the lessons, from karmic things pending, from just anything that could help your soul understand itself. So why do we access it? We access it to learn, to heal, to understand ourselves, to get answers. I think really, when we think of the Akashic Records, it's a lot about information and why questions and answers are such a big part of the dynamic of a reading. So the first thing when somebody books in, for example, I'm just going to focus on level 2 now, which is opening other people's records. And as a reader, when somebody confirms with me a reading, the first thing I I send them a bunch of stuff. I send them a form, I send them an email, I confirm. But the first thing really is making sure that they understand that they need to write down questions. And I give them some resources, some links to really understand what kind of questions they can ask. And there's a whole episode on that, so I can link that to this episode. I don't want to go into that. I just want to go into the energy about like preparing your questions for a reading. So you or anybody getting a reading, there's going to be a point before you actually get your Akashic Records open, somebody reads your Akashic Records, that you're going, I'm sorry if there's noises behind, this microphone isn't as good as a microphone I usually use. I had some technical issues before coming on the call. So not the call, before coming on the recording. Oh my gosh. And it literally spent 45 minutes trying to get the microphone to like show up on my computer, and it's been happening lately a lot. So I didn't want to waste time. I wanted to make sure I recorded this. So the first thing I would tell somebody is the importance of writing down questions, to really go inward, to listen to their intuition, to understand what it is that they want to understand at that point in their life. So these questions can vary. And like I said, I'll put the link to that specific episode on this, on the show notes of this episode. But the idea is that you can ask questions about relationships, dynamics, things that you are struggling with, just emotions, soul contracts, karmic pending things, lessons, things for the future sometimes can come in for the Akashic Records. Akashic Records also are very connected to past lives, incarnations. So that could come through if it's pertinent to whatever or connected to anything that you're going through today or that your soul feels that you need to know. The Akashic Records never bombards you with information that that's not going to serve you through the questions that you're asking. So, and past lives can be important sometimes, but not always. And it depends. You can ask about a past life in one reading and you don't really get anything. And then the next one, all of a sudden, all this information's coming through and it just clicks. So at some point after you confirm that you're getting a reading, or even, I would say even before, maybe some of us before we even book in with somebody, we're like, I know the questions I want to ask. I'm going to sit down and write those down. I mean, even better. What do you want to know? What are you trying to understand? What are you struggling with? What are those lessons that you feel you keep repeating? Are you in a loop? Are you stuck in patterns that you feel you can't get out of? You would ask about those. It is the biggest and most important part of the reading, preparing the questions. So the moment we start to really sit with ourselves, listen to our intuition, ask ourselves, what do I want to ask? I always say it's a good idea to really just sit with yourself, connect, listen to your intuition. And maybe you don't do this in just one sitting, especially if you have time until the reading. I would say sit with yourself a couple of times, go back to them, like revisit them. Does it still feel right to ask that question? So by the time the day of the reading comes, they've been written down. You know exactly what you feel you need to ask, or what you know you need to ask. So just the act of sitting with yourself, really going inward, listening to your intuition and the intention that you have with the reading that you want to get from somebody or with yourself, that's already moving energy. That's already moving energy for the answers to come in. Some of them, like I've heard people saying, this has happened to me, like the moment I started writing down those questions, I knew what those answers were, but I needed somebody outside of me through a reading to really validate what I'm feeling so that I can be certain that I can listen to my own. So many readings are just about validation, which is great. And I've used it for that many, many times. But the moment that we do start to jot those down, you can write them down on a piece of paper or type them up on your computer. That's already moving energy in like the fifth dimensional energy in the soul sense to start bringing the answers down. So the moment that your Akashic records are open, bam, all the information's coming in. And obviously the dynamic that I use is I like the person to voice the question. Sometimes they can give background, of course, that always helps me understand the messages coming through. But in a deeper sense, the person asking the questions out loud is like them solidifying even further what they want to hear. To me, it feels so powerful for somebody to do that. And all of a sudden, like all the answers start like flowing in. So it can already generate, especially if you write those questions down a little time in advance. I don't mean like the day before or 2 days before. I mean like a week or weeks before. People tend to say to me that they already felt the answers coming in for themselves. Like they were able to kind of feel or intuitively know what they were going to hear already, which is always a good thing because maybe they needed to start to listen to themselves and listen to their intuition. But it starts to create alignment, changes, and movement and shifts for the person. And I tend to find that people that don't prepare for the reading or don't prepare fully or just like, oh, I just jotted them down before the readings just don't feel, and not always, I'm generalizing here, of course, but I tend to find in general that those readings, it's like the person, I don't know if they were very intentional with their questions or what it was, but the reading just doesn't feel as, I don't know, profound, I guess, as deep. But that's not always, like I'm saying, it depends on the person and what they're going through and what they've been through. But I tend to find that the energy is very different in the reading in general and how I channel and how I receive the information. And a lot of factors can play in there. Like I've said, the more open the person is to the reading, the more like the more comfortable they are, the easier it is for me to receive and channel for them. And it's interesting because I feel like it's with anything, and this, let's go outside of the Akashic Records. It's when you're looking, like you want to travel, for example, and the person that really sits and, does their research and looks into all those places they want to visit when they go on their trip, or all the things that they really want to make sure that they use their time wisely for, like they know that there's certain museums that they want to go to, or there's a certain area they want to stay in. Those people tend to feel like they've got a lot more out of their trip than somebody that just kind of showed up and they're like, oh, I don't know what's even going on here. Or even just like that could create the sense of like, I know I need to visit this place around this time of year because this is going on there. So I don't know. That's kind of like like an idea that they're bringing forward of like how you can look at it for the questions. The more you prepare, the more you're going to receive, the more you're going to get out of the reading. And the more things will shift, because I think a lot of people are like, well, the reading's over. It's like, months after a reading, things can continue to shift and change, especially if we're super in alignment with ourselves and doing the work that we need to do. And in readings, a lot of times, I always call it like homework, like quote unquote homework. You can get homework and things to work on and things to be aware of and things to focus on. And the more that the person does that, the more that they will find that things change and shift and go in the right direction for them. And the right direction is the direction that they want to go. So it's really interesting, this dynamic, right? And I think a lot of people still always get something, even if they were to prepare their questions before the reading and they kind of just like sat for 10 minutes and wrote them down. They might have been thinking about those questions for months, but they actually just wrote them down. So that energy there would be different than somebody that just didn't think about the reading and sat down 5 minutes before to write it down. The thing is, writing down, the act of writing or typing up, I like more the energy of like grabbing a piece of paper and a pen, especially a pen, and writing down the question. That has such an energetic, it's like this uplifting energy of like, I'm writing this down, I'm taking the time to sit with myself, and I'm committing and putting intention into the homework I need to do before I go into this reading. And it's you literally asking your soul in a higher realm and your soul, like your guides and your masters, of what you want to understand. And it's like I always say, and Lewis said this millions of times too, if you don't ask, you will not receive many times, right? It's not always, but I would say it's kind of like an energetic rule. We have to ask for what we want. That's like how manifesting works, right? If I want to manifest something, I need to ask for it, and then I have to put in the work. It's the same thing. But if one of those steps aren't being taken, then it's like something's missing, and then it feels like something's off, or we don't get the full energy of it. And the moment we start to write those questions down is a moment energy can start to move to heal us, to bring forward those answers, where for many of us, when we're in a reading, it's like things start to click because we've already been connecting with the question and that thing in our life that means a lot to us. And like I said, I'm more focusing on getting a reading from somebody else right now, but we're going to go into opening your own records and what I would suggest. So, like I always say, it's not just a reading. It's what we do before, the energy we're enduring, and what we do after. You can't subtract one of those from the entire formula. It won't be as effective, right? It won't be as healing. It's like I wrote down my questions, I went to the reading, I was super open, and then I know I need to work on these things, but I don't focus on them. And that's our free will, right? That is our free will to focus on what we want. But if we don't focus on all three aspects, it won't be as powerful. That's basically kind of the answer in that sense. So I want to get into what my suggestion is how I would approach preparing your questions and kind of like tips, I guess, before an Akashic Record reading. So you've booked in your reading with somebody, you know you want this, you're ready for it, you feel prepared, you feel like this is something you've been needing for a while, and let's say your reading's in a week or 2 weeks. I would say as soon as you book in that reading, give yourself the day or the next day, I would say really just grab a pen and paper. Maybe you have a journal. You'd write this in your journal. That could be even better because then those questions will be there. And then you can keep processing before the reading. I would say do a little meditation, even 3 to 5 minutes. Connect to your heart. Make sure you're in this energy of not feeling like people can come in and distract you or ask things of you. Really make it kind of a ritual and sit with yourself and put your hands on your heart and really ask yourself, why did I feel I needed this reading? Why did I book in this reading? What do I feel like I need to ask? And what do I feel like I need to get out of getting a reading today? And you're going to start to just flow and just write down those questions. And maybe you start with areas of your life first, and then under each area, it's like, what do I want to ask under each area? Or you just have your questions, and that's fine too, right? That can be perfectly fine. And I always just write down questions. But for some people, it's like it feels a bit overwhelming of like, I can ask anything. Like, what am I going to ask? And write as much as you can down. And you're going to put that down. You're going to connect yourself again. Maybe do a little bit of breath work. And then I want you to look at those questions again and ask yourself, do I feel like there's anything missing here? If there's not, that's great. If there is, write it down. And then you're going to close or put the pen and paper aside, and you're going to go back to it in a couple days or the next day if it's that you have a reading closer to that date that you were working the questions in. And you're going to read them all over. You're going to obviously do your little meditation, connect to your heart, and listen to your intuition. And you're going to ask yourself again, reading over these questions, is there anything I feel that I need to ask? Is there anything I feel like I need to move out of this list too? Because there might have been shifts and changes from the moment you started writing those questions down. Always meditating, always a little bit of breath work, quiet, silence, in a moment of the day that you feel that you can really relax and let go and surrender and connect with the present moment. And also another tip I was going to say, if between those times that you went back to the list, you got some intuitive message that there's an area or a question that you wanted to ask, make sure you can write that down somewhere and then bring that to the list. We don't want to leave anything out. And maybe you don't get to all the questions, but you writing them down is already helping that area of your life and helping you get the answers, even yourself. And maybe you don't have enough time for this. If you have a couple of days, that's fine. You just do this once, and maybe the day of the reading, you sit with yourself and just ask yourself, does this list feel good to me? Do I feel like I need to ask anything else? And if you don't, that's fine. Trust it. And then you let it go. You release. You say, okay, these are my questions. This is what I'm going to ask. I release, I let go, and I trust that I'm going to receive whatever it is that I'm needing to understand today, or in that reading that I'm going to get later today or tomorrow. That's how I would approach it. And questions can come in between you writing them down and going into the reading. So jot them down. And then the day of the reading, I always tell people, keep your questions close by. You're going to be asking them out loud. It's super powerful for you to use your voice and ask what you want for. That to me feels like free will, like times 10, because you're actually asking it and you're not sending it to me for me to read it out loud or just keep that in my head. And I always say to people, listen to your intuition when you're in the reading. Because some people write down tons of questions, right? And there's only so much you can get through in an hour or an hour and a half. So I always say, listen to your intuition. And if there's a question that you're feeling guided to start with that. There's a reason for that. So the energy of the Akashic records and being in that fifth dimensional energy, so when your records are open, really helps you become more in tune also with that. Let's move on to opening your own Akashic records, because that is similar, but I'm gonna talk a few separate things there. So, if you are you've done level 1, you're learning to read your own Akashic records. I'm going to talk more in the aspect of when we start on this journey, because I get a lot of people DMing me, messaging me, emailing me. I get a lot of this in my Akashic Record mentorship. That's something I offer. I help people work through learning to read their own records or learning to read other people's records. So it's a service I offer. And I generally just offer that in sense of anybody that's studied through Lucy and I's courses, which, as I mentioned, are on sale right now until the 23rd of April. So I would definitely take advantage of it. I'll put the link in the show notes and talk a little bit about it at the end. So if you're going to open your own records, the same thing applies, right? You're still needing to write down your questions. Some people don't have, and in our course, we offer a huge list. Huge, I don't know, there's quite a lot of questions. I don't know if I use the word huge, but I guess huge just came through. But a lot of questions as examples that can help you get started with opening your own records. Because we get to a point with the practice, so we have the 15, 15, 15, when you kind of slowly progress to opening your records a little bit more time, so you attune to the energy, because at the beginning some people can feel quite tired. Not everybody, but some people can. So we give tons of examples, and you can literally use the list for yourself and just change up a few things on the questions. And we always say, like, with asking questions, especially when you're opening your own, it's like you're your own detective. You have to ask the questions that'll get you in this energy of really figuring out what the foundation and where things are coming from, and why these patterns are showing up in your life, and why you're feeling a certain way, and why, et cetera, et cetera. That comes through your questions, because we can ask a general question and get information, and then if we go a little bit deeper with the way we're asking the question, the answers may come through. With opening your own, if you feel like you're getting stuck, I would say you always have to kind of like meditate and connect yourself and get yourself aligned and balanced and open your energy to open your own records. And take a few moments before you even open your records, maybe even before you go into the meditation. It's like you do a double meditation. Like you connect yourself, you breathe, and you sit with yourself and ask yourself, what do I want to ask today? And you write down 3 to 5 questions. You go back inward, you connect, you align, you put your intention, you open your records, and then your questions are already written down. You can ask them out loud, or you can say them in your head. And then you start writing. Some people record audio notes, some people type on their computer, but generally speaking, most people will write it down, kind of like automatic writing. It kind of feels like that. I always say it's important to have the questions kind of ready before you open your records, because imagine this. I've just opened my records. I have a list of 100 questions that I can ask. I don't even know where to start. For some people, that might work. But for most people that are just starting, it's overwhelming. Have 2, 3 questions. And maybe you can reword them and go deep with each one. And really just have that ready before you open, because then you already know your energy's already prepared to start to like ask that question out loud, for example. The energy's coming in. You're starting that process already before you even imagine yourself opening your records. It's the same energy. It's just a little bit different because we're asking questions for ourselves. So it can feel different in that sense. And you're doing all the work. You're the one channeling. You're the one writing down the questions. You're the one opening your energy. You're the one aligning yourself. There's more steps in a personal sense, right? But I would use that same process of preparing the questions before. And maybe you keep a journal, and you just, anytime a question appears, you write it down. And you just have a list, and then you pick the ones that you feel that day by opening your records that could help you, or what you were really struggling with that day, or what you're feeling called to ask about. But we have to ask the questions, because it's like I said, if you don't ask, you won't receive. It's the same energy. And then the same thing goes with opening your own records. After the reading, there's a sense of shifting. If we really can take that information that we've received, read it back after we've closed our records, sit with the information, and like integrate it. And this is why I always say don't rush into getting a reading a couple days after you get a reading from somebody else, or when you open your own records. You might not want to ask the same question again. You need to integrate that information. You need to really sit with it. You have to maybe journal about it, or talk to somebody about it, or really just meditate on it, because depending on what you've asked, it can be something super profound that you didn't even expect to receive. You couldn't even imagine, right? So this is where awareness and understanding ourselves becomes a really big part of becoming our own readers, and where we need to advocate for ourselves, but also when we become a reader for somebody else, where it's important for us to make sure that they understand that too, that everything's a process, that not everything will be healed in a day, and that sometimes the information comes forward, but they'll get a reading in 6 months or in a couple months, and it goes deeper and goes deeper, and you're just like, wow, I thought I had already gotten all the information. The information you received in the past session was what you were ready to hear that day. The same thing goes for us when we open our own records. We can ask a question today, and in a month we'll ask another question, in a couple of weeks, and we're like, whoa, more's coming through. What happened? It's like, because you integrated it, you worked through it. It became something that you were aware of. So now it's like your soul's preparing to go deeper. You're prepared to heal it deeper. And it's all in layers, like we always say. So remember, your questions could take that into consideration when you ask the questions. And it's not like we want to be asking the same question over and over again every time we open our records every day, but it's more like, is there an aspect of what I asked yesterday that I really did understand? I already kind of knew it. I'm ready to go deeper. Listen to yourself, right? The same thing when you're going to get a reading from somebody else. What do you really want to know? Get out of your head, get out of your ego, go to your heart. What is your heart and your higher self need to understand today for you to grow, expand, and like learn those lessons? What are those things you have to let go of? This is how we go deep. This is how we use these readings for something more than just, more than just getting answers for questions that I don't know. It's like, I don't want to it's like Lulu referred to it as like la spirituality. It's like some readings can be that way, right? But what if we know we're on a path that we need to really heal something? Then put the energy to write that question down and ask it in the right way with a full open heart. Because they will never tell you something that you're not ready to hear, and they'll also never tell you something that's going to hurt you. It's going to help you understand where you're at, where you're going, and what's happening or what has been happening. The patterns you've been in. Where the pain is coming from, where the healing needs to go, and what the healing will provide for you, what it can project to the future, and all of that stuff. So it's not that level 1 and level 2 or opening your own or opening somebody else's is that different question-wise, right? It's pretty similar. So my suggestion would be connect yourself, be real, go back to it a few times if you can and you have the time. And a lot of times I feel like for people, the questions will come when they're in the middle of doing something else. So always have your phone notes or a pad and pen where you can just write those questions down, because that will really help. I'm thinking if there's anything else I want to say. I have my notes here. I think I'm just gonna, I don't want to go too much into this. I just wanted to say this because I feel like there's most people really do prepare for readings. And I think this also really empowers us to take like the reins of that reading, because we're in control. The reader is always there just a channel and to be a channel for your information. And that's a powerful position to be in as somebody that's getting a reading or opening our own records. Know that, understand that, and that you are the most important part of the reading. If you're not there, the reader has nothing to channel. It's useless, right? So if there are any questions regarding this topic, feel free to DM me. You can also send us an email. All the links will be on the show notes. As I mentioned earlier, our Akashic Record Level 1 and Level 2 courses, so learning to read your own and learning to read others, those courses are for sale right now. There's a 23% discount off both. I will leave a link where it kind of shows you the link to go to the courses, and there's a discount code. So you're gonna have to use a discount code in checkout in order for you to get the discount. Obviously, if there's any questions with the courses themselves, I'll quickly say they are self-paced, they are online, they're complete manuals that you can download, and then there's videos, and then also with level 1 and level 2 on our Thinkific site, which is these that are on sale right now, you get access to our Facebook group, which is a closed Facebook group only for people that are using or have taken level 1 or level 2 with us. So you get the support. You can always email us. We're there. We can guide you in the right direction. You can ask us questions. You also get to connect with other people that have done the courses. So it's a really beautiful community. I also have a few things going on. I have my Akashic Counseling sale going on. So 25% off all my Akashic Counseling sessions. Those are 25% off until the end of April. So it is similar to an Akashic Record reading, so I open your records for that, but it's not so much about me channeling and you asking questions the whole time. I usually tell people, treat it as like a coaching session with Akashic Records and like in the middle. So through me opening your records, I'm able to receive guidance, I'm able to get intuitive information, I'm able to get things from your Akashic book, but it's more about focusing on 1, 2, or 3 areas of your life. And you can ask a few questions in between. But just the talking, like the two of us talking together, will help the information come through. So it's not like a question and answer type energy like the Akashic Record reading, but it can be super profound. And a lot of people book in more than one session. They use it as kind of like a counseling, kind of therapy type thing. So that's on sale until the end of April. And those are 45-minute sessions. I'll put the link to that sale from my website on there, and if you have any questions, you can reach out through my contact form. I'll also link, like I said, the episode that we share with a lot of people that book any readings with us, where it explains what kind of questions you can ask. And I also have an Akashic Record Reading giveaway going on, so I'll put the link to that. It's on my Instagram, so make sure you share that with everybody. Like, enter, it's super easy. And I'll be picking somebody, I believe it's Friday the 14th of April. I'll be picking a winner. And I'll be doing those throughout the year. I tend to do quite a few during the year, especially at the end. It's like, I like to give away quite a few things, especially when we're finishing the year. I feel like there's always like a rush to heal things, to let go of things. And there's a lot of interesting energy at the end of the year. But I have a lot of sales going on this year, a lot of different things going on. So make sure that you're following me on Instagram so that you can not miss anything. I also have a newsletter, so I'll put the link for you to sign up for my newsletter, which is on my website, because that's where I kind of send a monthly, it kind of basically just send an email monthly saying what's going on and what you need to know and if there's any sales or anything. So I use it as kind of like a little way of informing people of my offerings and any sales and giveaways and all that, which I do, like I said. So yeah, if you are thinking about getting a reading, quick reminder, Lou and I both do one-on-one readings virtually. We also do dual readings, so that is all linked below. You'll be able to see our services and all that. And always just DM us or send us an email if you have any questions. We can answer anything. And yeah, Lou, I'm going to say we because it's like I always feel like Lou's still here with me in energy and spirit. I hope you all have a really wonderful week. Know that these times right now are really pushing us to heal, are really pushing us to let go of things that aren't ours and heal things for our family and our family system. And I'll definitely be doing more content about the family system and family constellations more this year, and really talking about things that can really serve all of us in our journey and our healing path. And I will be offering a new service very soon, so stay tuned for that on my Instagram as well and on my website. But just sending you all love and light and hoping you have a wonderful week, and keep going with the healing, make yourself a priority, take care of yourself, and thank you for tuning in. Bye.